All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with Sunday school. All right, if everybody could grab a seat here real quick, we'll get going. I'm a little loud, but so we're going to finish up real quick. We've been dealing with our politics in the Bible, specifically dealing with economics, and we spent the last week talking about. We didn't quite finish it. We talked about money supply. We talked about free markets as opposed to, say, a socialistic or communistic market, which controls the government more. What does the Bible have to say about all these things? And we kind of went through a lot of Bible verses showing that it is government's job to control money supply, and to regulate a free market is more biblical than not. And really, we're just going to finish up this lesson with just a few results of the biblical teaching, and that'll only take just a few minutes, and then we're going to get into dealing with the rich and poor, and what does the Bible say about the rich and the poor, right? And so that's what we'll get into today. But we were talking about a free market, and we find that better results come from a free market because it's better at producing goods and services. The economic goods of a free market usually are of better quality at lower prices, and they're actually goods that people want rather than goods that some government agency tells you that you need. And so a free market allows freedom to work at jobs that you choose. Remember, a man is supposed to work, or if you don't work, you shouldn't eat. That's what the Bible says. But the idea is that you would have the right to work as you see fit. In not free markets, in, say, a communistic nation, they assign your job, whether you like it or not. And that's not... that doesn't encourage people to seek better jobs or to get better. It doesn't motivate to do good work. And so when you have a free market, you have more motivation. Free markets give employers the benefit of hiring and firing people. Think about this. If your government controls everything, if you have somebody that's no good, you can't fire them until the government says so. And so if the person doesn't do a good job, that can be very discouraging. Free markets also offer better benefits to the consumer. They also are a lot better at predicting what people want. Look, sometimes government thinks, and of course, this is not anti-government by any means, but sometimes government thinks that because they're government, they know what's best, that they're the smartest people in the room. They're not. They're people. So there might be some smart people in government, and, does anybody here work at the IRS? Okay, good. Because I've met several people over the years that work at the IRS. They're all crazy, all right? They're crazy, like there's something wrong. Now, I'm sure that there are normal, good people that work at the IRS. She's an accountant. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So at Spark, where Jen, the club, the IRS building's across the street. So a lot of the IRS people come there. She said, "No, I'm right. They're crazy." And so look, just because people work for the government doesn't mean they're smarter. There are normal people. Probably they don't interact with people. But there are normal people, and then there are weird people and crazy people, and people are people. And just because they're in government doesn't necessarily mean that they're better or smarter or anything like that. It doesn't mean that they know what society needs or wants. They're just in a position to... So when you have a free market, companies that have money riding on things are a lot better at predicting what consumers are going to want than government that doesn't really care, because if things don't work out, they'll just print themselves more money, which we talked about last week, which really messes with the economy. And by the way, that cost on lumber, that's national. In this area, it's about 3 times more expensive right now. So in this area, lumber is tripled in cost. Nationally, it's doubled. In this area, it's tripled in cost in 1 year. And so, that's, a concern, and we talked about a lot of these different things, and so I don't want to, go on that too much. But so there are several principles of the Bible that superior results come from a free market better than a government-controlled market. A government, think of it like this, government-controlled automobile industry produces more and more cars that fewer and fewer people want to buy. And would fail to produce other cars that consumers really want. And this will be evident when the government has to offer large cash rebates or tax benefits to people by government-mandated small, high-mileage cars or poorly made cars. Look, I know no one will remember this, but the big push to make everything electric now? That within the next 20 years, everything will be electric. You just watch. The government's going to have to offer all these incentives for people to buy them because why? People don't want to, right? They don't want to, okay? And I'm not anti-environment, all right? I'm just saying that this is what will happen. You watch as time comes, there are going to be all these incentives to buy certain vehicles because if you don't give the incentives, then people won't buy it. Why? They don't want it. So, essentially, offering people a lot of money to choose cars they otherwise would not, all right? Such a policy of government-running companies is not going to be sensitive to consumer demand, and it will shift people towards buying cars that people actually want. So, that's some of the things that happen here. Same thing can be said with health care. If you have government-run health care, what happens is it takes, like England, Canada, what happens is you can't get the services that you need in the time frame that you need them. That's what happens when you have government-run health care. So you have long wait times, and so you have people in Canada and different places that need cancer treatments that are going to the United States for them because they're on a wait list. And by the time they get the treatment, they might be dead. And that's what happens when you have government-run health care, and so we have to be careful of those things. So I just wanted to finish that up. There was no real Bible in that, and I apologize, but we covered it all in the previous week. So now, let's get to dealing with the rich and the poor, all right? Can I get, I need a couple of readers who'd like to read for me. All right, Abby. Have you do Exodus 23, verse 6, Ben, Exodus 23, verse 3, Sarah, Proverbs 17, verse 26, Roger, 1 Peter 2:14. That'll take us a little bit of time. So let's talk about the government first and the rich. The government and the rich. And there's this idea by some that rich people have gotten their wealth by unjust means. Oh, they're rich. Obviously, they've cheated somebody. Now, I'm not saying everybody has that view. I'm just saying there is that idea out there that money, it's because they've taken advantage of somebody else. And those that have that mindset then believe that it is right for government to take some of their money because they got it unjustly. President Obama once said, "It is time for folks like me who make more than $250,000 to pay our fair share." Now, the word fair in the context means more taxes than they're currently paying. People think that they can afford it and it won't hurt them, all right, to pay more taxes. Now, the question, whether you agree with that statement or not, is irrelevant. What we're doing is, what does the Bible teach? All right, that's what this study is about, is what does the Bible teach about the rich and the poor? And the Bible does not seem to reflect that type of thinking, nor is there any suggestion that the government has the right to take the money of wealthy people simply because they're wealthy. The emphasis in the Bible is on treating the rich and the poor fairly. That is the emphasis of the Bible, is treating people fairly. Not they're rich, take more of their money, because that's fair. That's not what the Bible teaches. If they have done wrong, they should be penalized. All right? Now, that's fair. But if they've done nothing wrong, then they should not be punished. The Bible does warn, though, against treating the poor unjustly. Go ahead, read Exodus 23, verse 6. Okay, so that word rest, thou shalt not rest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. This is dealing with a lawsuit, okay? And when there's a lawsuit involving a poor person, and what it's saying is, when we think wrestle, all right? When you wrestle something away from somebody, you take it from by force, all right? So that's kind of the idea here. And what this is saying is that when you as a judge are making decisions and you're dealing with a poor person, that should not be reflected in your decision. In other words, oh, this person's rich, this person's poor. We should not hold a person's being poor against them and should not factor into the judgment. It's just like in church. You know, the amount of money you make is irrelevant to your ideas. In other words, if you have two people in a church who think we should do things, one way, all right? And so we have a situation, and two people have two different solutions that are polar opposite, and one of them is rich and one of them is poor. In the church context, it doesn't matter how much money they have. It's not even entering into the equation. Now, human nature, if we're not careful, say, oh, that person's rich, they give money, I'm going to do what they want. That would be a violation of this verse right here, because that would be, as it says here, go ahead and, thou shalt not wrest judgment of thy poor in his cause. That is wrestling away their cause from them because they're poor. That's wrong. Friends, don't ever make decisions based on someone's financial status. That is unbiblical. We also see that there are other verses that are against favoring the poor, indicating a bias against the rich. Ben, go ahead and read Exodus 23, verse 3. Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause. All right, so on the flip side, don't just do what the poor person wants because they're poor. It's the same thing. Whoa, that guy's rich, so, we got to help this guy. No, you don't factor in people's economic wealth or lack thereof in your decision. That's not fair any way around. You make decisions based on truth and what is right. The question is not whether someone is rich or poor, but whether someone has done good or evil. It is wrong to punish those who have not done wrong. Proverbs 17, verse 26. Go ahead and read that.
Also, to punish the just is not good, nor to strike princes for equity.
Okay, so it is not good to punish, all right? Also, to punish the just is not good. Okay, so this person over here has done nothing wrong, but we're going to punish them. That is wrong. Nor to strike princes for equity. What does that mean? Well, a prince is a wealthier person. To strike them for value. In other words, I'm going after them. They've done nothing wrong, but I'm going after them because they have money. Have people ever filed lawsuits at somebody just because they have money? Yeah. Oh, that person's rich. So normally I wouldn't do anything, but that person's rich, so I'm just going to fabricate something and I'm going to file a lawsuit against them because they have money. It's wrong. Don't ever go after somebody just because they have money. It's not a question of if they have money. It's a question of good and evil. That doesn't mean you can't bring a lawsuit, but it's not about whether they have money or not. It's a question of right and wrong. This is consistent with the Bible teaches about the proper role of government. 1 Peter 2:14. Go ahead.
Or unto governors as unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers and for the praise of them that do well.
Okay, so governors are to punish evildoers. And they are to praise them that do well. That is the defined role of government for people. punish those who do evil, praise them that do good. Now, when we think of praise, what do we think of? Rewarding, right? Rewarding, elevating. We should praise people that do good. There are wealthy people in the world that do evil. There are also middle-class people that do evil, and there are poor people that do evil. You know, when we go to the jail, when we go to prison, they're all three people, rich, middle class, and poor, that are there. Why? Because evil is not associated with an income. It is irrelevant. You know, there are also good people that are poor, middle class, and rich. Good and evil are not associated with how much money a person makes. So those who break the law should be punished by government, whether they are rich, poor, or middle class, and it is wrong to stereotype rich people as evil. You know, can I also say this? It's wrong to stereotype poor people as trying to just milk the system too. Are there people who do that? Yes. But there are people who don't. There are people that want to do better and are struggling to do that. There are a lot of different situations out there, and we as Christians ought not to stereotype anybody, but rather let their actions speak for themselves. So we also should not exploit other people because they may have made their money in an unjust way. Oh, they're rich. Well, they obviously cheated somebody, so let's exploit them. It's just getting even. Well, you don't know that. You don't know that, and we shouldn't be that way. We should not treat the rich with suspicion, just as we should not treat the poor with suspicion. It would be better to think of specific. In other words, when we think of rich people, we're not thinking of a particular person. We're just thinking of rich people, and rather what we ought to do is think of people that we know, because look, we all probably know somebody who we view as rich, because rich is kind of relative. What I've found is people usually spend what they make, so. You know, we might, that person's rich. But you go back to, no, I'm not rich. That person's rich. And they just, you know, rich is kind of relative to what you think, okay? And so, but when you think of somebody you think of as rich, for the most part, I would say that you probably, when you think, oh, that person, yeah, they got a lot of money. Most of us would say, yeah, you know, the people I know that have a decent amount of money are actually, you know, decent people. A good number of them. There are probably some people who aren't, but a lot of people are decent. And, you know, let's think of some of the richest people in the world. You know, they provide some things that we really enjoy. Before we criticize them, without them, we would be lacking some things. Who knows who the richest person in the world is today? Who is it? Yes, Jeff Bezos. Who knows what he does? Amazon, that's right. He owns Amazon. Oh, well, let's just go with him for now. And so, you know, his wealth is, you know, if they reconcile, he'll be back on top, all right? But anyhow, you know, let me ask you a question. Does anybody feel like Amazon's stealing from them? Actually, I find Amazon to be very, very good as far as price. I find not only are they good price, it gets there quickly. It's like seriously, it's like you order it and then they deliver it. It's like, where are these people? Like, are they around the corner? Like, do they know what Jen's going to order before she orders it? And you know, it's like purchase, and then the dog barks because it's being delivered. And I'm just, you know, I buy things on Amazon too. Don't worry. But I don't feel like I'm being ripped off by Amazon. I don't feel like I'm being robbed. I feel like that I'm being provided something that is of value. So here's the richest man, or once was the richest man in the world, and you know, a man who has a lot of money. I'm sure he'll bounce back fine. And you know, I don't feel like this guy's stealing from me. In fact, I feel like he's providing a service that is a benefit to my life that I don't have to go to the store and buy. I hate shopping. All right, I don't like going to the store. All right, and I don't like Jen going to the store either. It's not what it seems. Okay, it's like you go to the store for what yesterday was a poster board, right? Yeah, a poster board. Anybody know how much does a poster board cost?
It was a trifold.
Trifold. How much is a trifold? Let's say $10. 10? 10's a good number. Okay, $10. 115 later, things happen, right? And what?
Like, if you're going to go tell stories about me, make me look bad. Birthday presents. Thank you.
I know, but it didn't fit in the story, all right? They were birthday presents, which we didn't need to get, which I had said to get. That's just true. But the point here is this. I like online. I like online because why? It's quick. You don't spend things you're not playing. Because how many of us, all of us have done it. You go to the store to get something, and you walk out with what? More than you intended. All right? What's that?
Not the item that you went in for.
Not the item that you went in for. Oh, man, that'd be bad. Rich, have you ever done that? No, never. Emily sends Rich to the store to get chicken. He comes back with $200 worth of stuff and no chicken. And I think that might be a real story, actually.
Buy now, one click.
What's that?
Buy now, one click is just.
Buy now, one click, man. I love it. But anyhow, we all have done that, all right? So I'm joking about Jen, but the reality is that we all know that we've all done that, where we go into a store. And so we say, if we're trying to save money, something like Amazon is a service to us. We're not being robbed by him. And the truth is, most rich people get their money, honestly, by working hard and being creative, thinking outside the box and creating things that are helpful to people. Now, in government, they have no right to take more of their money because they're smart, because they have worked hard. Unless they're criminal, then they shouldn't be punished. This is the biblical approach. We should not assume the rich are evil. Now, what about the attitude that says money should be taken from the rich because they can afford it, because it won't hurt them? Exodus 20, verse 15, it's one of the 10 Commandments. It says this, thou shalt not steal. What is stealing? Can anybody tell me what stealing is? Chris? It's taking something that's not yours. All right? Taking something that's not yours. It is not right to steal from the poor, is it? It's also not right to steal from rich. Let me ask you a question. If I went to Jeff Bezos' home or Elon Musk, if I went into their home and there was some cash sitting on a table, and I took that cash under the justification, they got plenty of money, they don't need it, it won't hurt them. What would you call that? Stealing. Why? Because the justification of they don't need it, it won't hurt them, is not a biblical justification. That is their money that they earned through hard work. If they've done wrong, then they should be punished. But if they've done no wrong, then I have no right to take what is theirs. Now, I know, follow me, don't give up on me yet. I know a few people are wondering where I'm going with this. Just trust we're going to get somewhere. Let's talk about government and economic equality. Should it be government's responsibility to take from the rich and give to the poor? Should it be government's responsibility to take what the rich have earned and give it to the poor? Should government try to equalize the amount of income or possessions that people have? Or at least take action to move in the direction of equality when it comes to finances? Now, before we answer this question, let's state something up front. There is a need for government to have supported welfare type programs to help people in need, in serious need. The government does have, remember, what is government's role? To promote the good of a nation that is not good if you have homelessness, if you have people without food, if you have people without proper clothing or without proper shelter. You do need government to have programs in place to help people that need food and need clothing and need shelter. It's also appropriate for government to provide funding so that they can gain enough skills and education if needed to earn a living so that they no longer need those programs. All right? I got to say, I really do like the program that Haverhill has with Emmaus House. What Emmaus Houses does is a homeless shelter. And if you follow the rules, it can actually be a very good program because they will get you in there and they help you and make sure you're taken care of. There's a lot of guidelines, but you get in there, and what they'll do is they will work to get you training, education. They help you to find jobs. They get you subsidized rent for a year. And then in that time, they're working with you to get jobs. And I've seen people that have gone through that program that have done really well. Okay, so it can work. There's a lot of guidelines. You've got to play by their rules. I'm not against that. I think it's great because no one should have to sleep outside at night. No one should have to be hungry. All right? No one should be without proper clothing for themselves or their children. Government ought to step in and help those people to get the help that they need. And they need the funding to do that. And so, our Constitution talks about promoting the general welfare. We ought to do that. And this includes enabling every citizen to live adequately in that society. Now, what this doesn't mean is that government has the right to reduce the differences between the rich and the poor. That doesn't mean that we have the right to punish the rich for working hard and being creative and doing well and take away their wealth and give it to people who haven't. Again, that's not saying that we shouldn't have programs in place to help those in great need. We need those programs. So apart from the basic requirement of government regarding general welfare, there's no biblical justification for government taking from the rich to give to the poor in an attempt to equalize the differences between the rich and the poor. Didn't Jesus say you'll always have the poor? That's interesting. Let me ask you a question. What about in societies like communism or socialism where they get rid of that? Are there still poor people? There are. There are. Because what happens is when you equalize wealth, rich and poor manifests itself differently. And you know where it manifests itself? In government privilege. We'll talk about that more in a minute. When you attempt to take money from the rich and give it to the poor, you can do significant harm to the economy and a society. In a free society with no government confiscation of wealth, the amount of money people will earn is going to vary widely. When you have a free market, you're going to have a wide discrepancy in income. Why? Well, because you have people with different abilities, interests, levels of economic ambition. How many know somebody who just is motivated to work? How many know somebody who's not motivated to work? Yeah. There's some people that are like, man, I want a job. Give it to me now. I want to work. And then there's other people that are just have zero interest in working. And if they are working, they're looking for a reason why they should leave that job because they don't like it. All right? Look, there are different people with levels of ambition. Okay? Now, that's going to, you know what that does, though? It creates a discrepancy in a society of the amount of money people have. How many people know somebody, or maybe you've been in this situation where you hated your job, but you stayed with it because you knew you needed money coming in? Okay. Now, how many of you know somebody who, probably similar situation, and just quit and had nothing? And then they're like, I don't have any money. Well, yeah, because you quit your job. That's what happens when you don't work. You don't have money. Well, I don't like you. I'm quit. Fine, quit. But you have no money. That creates an economic discrepancy. Should we reward the person who quit their job with no thought of tomorrow? Should we reward them? No. Oh, you quit your job because you didn't want to work? Don't worry about it. I'm going to take this guy's money who stayed at his job that he hated, and I'm going to give it to you. So that guy's like, wait a minute. So I'm working so this moron over here who doesn't want to work can get my money? I don't think so. I quit too. Now we joke. That's what happens. And how long can a nation survive when they realize, if I don't work, I'm going to get taken care of? It's a serious consideration. Why? Because the government will take from the rich and give to the poor. In a free society, you're going to have these discrepancies. You're going to have people who are very skilled surgeons or very good athletes that are going to be highly paid, or somebody who writes the best novels, or they invent a new computer software, they start a small business and lead it to be highly profitable. And if they're free from government intervention, some people will become very wealthy. Others will have a comfortable level of income, and some will remain relatively poor. In this economic system that's free, if people are allowed to be paid fairly for the different kind of work they do, it is inevitably going to happen. Consider this social experiment. Let's say everybody was given $100,000 cash. So everybody here, you're like, I like this experiment. Everybody's given $100,000 in cash. After a few weeks, would there be a few of us that probably would have spent it all in just a couple weeks? All right? Okay? Okay, what would Sam do with $100,000? I must free my money. It will not be captive in my checking account. You are free. And so, all right, so some would spend very quickly. Others would have saved it all, not spent any of it. Some would have invested in activities that produce more income. And after a few months, everybody started with $100,000. And in a few months, there would be significant financial inequality based upon the decisions that you make. And the only way to create financial equality again would be to force the people who didn't spend or who made investments to give it to those that spent it. That would be the only way to create equality, by redistributing the money over and over and over again. Taking from those who have been the most frugal and the most productive, giving to those who have been the least productive, who have wasted their money. In other words, equality of possession cannot be maintained apart from penalizing good habits. There's no other way to do it. In other words, you do smart, you must be punished. It's the only way of having financial equality. So if you work hard, are productive, and have frugality, spend by a budget, you must be punished. And we will reward those who have wasted. Is that the role of government? No, it's the exact opposite, biblically speaking. Okay, remember, everything I'm saying is, what does the Bible teach? Reward those who do good. Does the Bible talk about investing? Yes, it does. Does the Bible talk about budgeting and planning? Yes, it does. Does the Bible talk about being responsible? Yes, it does. Does the Bible warn against wasting money? It does. Okay, so we reward wasteful spending and unproductive activity. And the longer such a thing continues, the more and more productive people just decide to give up because they cannot enjoy the fruit of their labor. And when that happens, society begins to a downward spiral into poverty and despair. Now, to a lesser degree, the same thing happens when governments attempt to equalize differences in income levels. Government can use their power to impose income equality on a population, but wherever this happens, it's brought about by restriction of human freedom. And is the result, it results into trap most of the nation in the equality of poverty. You ever notice that a lot of the socialist countries, communistic countries, the average person in that country is what? Poor. They're equally poor. And another result of attempting to impose economic equality on a nation is that if people are made equal in their economic possessions, there is inevitably an unequal term in political power. In other words, those in government are allocated privilege. This has been seen historically in many nations. Think of communist Soviet Union, where high-ranking political officials had access to limousines, fancier homes, opportunities for vacations on the Baltic Sea. And it's not that they made more money, they had political power. So they had access to all these things that other people did not. Why? Because they were in the government. So picture this. When a government is striving to create economic income equality amongst its people, all it's doing is creating an inequality for those that are in government. It gives them more authority and more power. Does anybody wonder how our public officials who make nominal salaries have millions and millions and millions of dollars that there's no way that they could have made with the money that they make? I wonder that. Look, the reality is this, is if you become a lifelong politician, you are financially going to be made. That is not a leader of people. That is a leader of elite. And a lot of their decisions are about themselves. That's why we got to pray for our leaders. Because if somebody tries to change that system, it's not going to go well. Because they become the enemy of everybody. Because why? They're messing with their money. They're messing with their money. You know, this is not about politics, but this is interesting. I just saw this article that since former President Trump became president, he has plummeted on the list of wealthy people. He has lost large amounts of money. He did not do what he did for his own wealth. Again, I'm not promoting, I'm just saying this, the facts. He plummeted. You can do what you want with that. Now, even when economic inequality is moved, it's simply replaced by inequality in privilege and the vast benefits that come from higher political power. The conclusion is this, that we should not, the role of government is not to equalize income or possessions amongst people in society. Again, what are we doing? What are we talking about? I'm talking about what the Bible says about government. And it is not government's responsibility biblically to equalize income. We can make an argument that there should be systems in place to take care of the extreme situations, all right? The poor, those that need food, those that need shelter, 100%. By the way, as Christians, this is, and I'll probably talk about this in a minute. So then how do we help the poor? I mean, if it's not to be taken, well, there's two ways. There's two ways. One, you just have a regular general tax upon everybody. It's like, think of tithing, for example. Tithing is 10%. It's how we fund the church. It's the same for everybody, isn't it? So if you make, $300,000 a year, what's your tithe? It's $30,000 a year. And if you make $30,000 a year, what's your tithe? It's $3,000. All right? It's flat. It's the same for everybody. That's what God says for you to fund His church. Now that would make sense in a government setting. It's not what we do. It's a scaled rate, but it would make sense in the government. However, we want to get back to the Bible here. We'll talk about the government and poverty now. And the Bible gives several verses that command us to help the poor. Okay? The poor need to be helped. So can I get some readers here? I need some readers. All right. Let's see here. What do I want? Marion, Romans 15, verses 25 and 26. Rosemary, Galatians 2:10. Can I get one more? Kian, I saw your hand first. 1 John 3. I'll have more in a moment. Jacob, I did see your hand, so I'll get you, okay? Now, there are several Bible verses that command us to help the poor. Let's go ahead and read Romans 15, verses 25 and 26.
But now I go on to Jerusalem to minister to the saints, for it hath pleased them of Macedonia and Asia to make a certain contribution for the poor saints which are at Jerusalem.
Okay, so these believers in Macedonia and Achaia, that's how you say that, it's a tough word, make a contribution to the poor saints that are at Jerusalem. So, hey, there's these people over here that are poor. We're going to help them. Galatians 2:10.
Only they would that we should remember the poor, saying which I also was forward to do.
Okay, we are to remember the poor. 1 John 3:17, go ahead.
But whoso hath this world's good, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion for him, how dwelleth the love of God in him?
Okay, so these verses, you know what they're teaching us? It is right for Christians to help the poor. In other words, if you see somebody in need, help them. Look, a couple times a year, don't I bring something up of somebody that we're connected with, that we know, say, hey, we need to help so-and-so. All right? And so what am I doing? I'm asking you that have some more money to help somebody who has less. Now, is it being taken from you and given to them? No. It is you giving of your own will. That is the Bible model. We are commanded to help the poor. How you help is between you and God. But we should help the poor. I'm all for government having systems to take care of extreme situations through a general tax. I think is a biblical model. But above and beyond that, God's people ought to give to help those that are in need. That when we recognize a need, we help that. And if every local church is doing that, do you think people will be taken care of? I do. I think our local church and the connection of our people, because have we given to needs of people who don't necessarily go here? We have. We're not bound to just help people that come to this church. We'll help needs wherever we see fit. And so we find, but notice what these verses don't tell us. Government involvement here, is there? It's not the government doing it, it's God's people doing it. It's God's people saying, you know what, I want to help these people because I have more I want to give. Finding passages that justify the idea of government having the right to compel the rich to give to the poor do not exist in the Bible. What we find are the rich of their own volition giving to the needs of the poor. That is the biblical example. Again, the only exception would be a general tax on revenue that everybody pays into that provides basic needs in a community for shelter, clothing, food, whatever the needs are. We're out of time today. We'll get back to this next week, all right? But let's close in prayer. Father, we thank you for the day, Lord. I pray that you would bless our service to follow. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.